Internet Conspiracies, Miami Aliens, Celebrity Clones and the Charlie Kirk Rabbit Hole. January 1, 2024. Dozens of police cars swarm a Miami mall. Witnesses claim chaos, fireworks, and fights. But within hours, a different story explodes online. Some people say 10-foot shadow creatures were spotted near the entrance of Bayside Marketplace. Meanwhile, on another corner of the internet, people claim celebrities like Jim Carrey have been secretly replaced by clones. And political commentator Charlie Kirk has become the center of strange conspiracy narratives and viral memes. So what's actually real, and what's just internet mythology? Today we're diving deep into 3 viral conspiracies that captured the internet.
Darkness closes, no fear. Ghosts and shadows, they draw near. No retreat, just bring the fight. Hosts Bob and Kyle, conquer your fright. Afraid of nothing, that's the shout. Paranormal, no doubt. Life and death will break it down in this rebel podcast town. Medium screen, they see the past. Scientists digging with quantum math. Ghost hunters rage against the night. Hosts Bob and Kyle shine the light. Afraid of nothing, that's the shout. Paranormal, no doubt. Life and death will break it down in this rebel podcast town. Alien visits, stories unfold. Near-death journeys, bold and cold. Akashic whispers, truths revealed with hosts Bob and Kyle. Mysteries unveiled. Afraid of nothing, that's the shout. Paranormal, no doubt. Life and death will break it down in this rebel podcast town. Tune in, you rebels, catch the vibe. Afraid of nothing, listeners join the tribe.
I am back with my buddy Kyle Carvin, and this is kind of a different one, Kyle. You suggested it. I thought it was a good idea. It's just going to be you and I riffing on some internet conspiracy theories. So I hope you've done your research and got your conspiracy thoughts lined up.
Well, I've been into conspiracies probably for like 20 years now, and I've gone deep on some, but it's like it's like one of those things that I don't think people would ever guess. Like people that know me, that don't know me well, or just by public appearance, people would never guess I'm really into conspiracy theories. But some I'm well versed in, and then some I've definitely become where I think a lot more things are plausible. Put it that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you always kind of wanted to believe in ghosts, but you're always kind of skeptic. You hadn't had anything. And you had texted me a couple months ago. You said, like 2 nights in a row, you won't believe this kind of thing that happened with my son in his room that I saw, in the baby monitor. And then you sent me a text the next day. It happened again. So you kind of told me that story. It's a little creepy and kind of interesting. Yeah. Let's. Do you mind giving the audience kind of the full disclosure of what happened?
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because, like you said, I've wanted to have like a de facto moment, to like confirm what I believe to be true. I'm still skeptical of it, of course, but basically, this was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and babies and baby monitors. it's always like a creep factor. But it was probably around midnight, and I was up alone. Everybody was sleeping, and suddenly I hear this children's song. I couldn't identify. I don't know what the song is, and I paused the TV and I'm looking around. Where is this coming from? What? And then I realized, oh, it's coming from the baby monitor, so AKA the room where the baby's sleeping. So I'm like, what the heck? So I run down the hallway and open the door, and no lie, as soon as the latch for the door and just started to swing, the music stops. It cut itself off immediately, which was part of the strange thing. So I go in the room just to try and look to see what was making that noise. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, he probably just turned something off. He got a hold of some toy. He got into his crib. We didn't know it. And, he had pushed it. So I look in his crib, but he's asleep. There's no toy in there. So then I started thinking, and being, that I'm already of the mind of, I'm already into paranormal stuff, of course. So my mind naturally drifts towards like, oh my God, I was like, is this a ghost? So then I'm just looking for the room. What could possibly make that noise? Because it was a song I had never heard. It's a song I'd never heard. I don't even know if it's an actual children's song. But then on the bed, there's this little pink like toy phone that there's a 5-year-old in the house as well, and this was his like little toy, so that was on the bed. So I'm looking at that, but I'm trying to find out even how to play the songs. I couldn't figure it out. So I just kind of assumed with that first experience that there was something strange. My biased mind turns that there was something paranormal, something like maybe a guardian angel or some sort of spirit that was there to kind of play with or look after, Jorah, my 18-month-old. And that's what I kind of thought about for the night. So that's why I texted you. Like, I got to tell you this because it felt so. I was like, this is like a classic example of something going off in a room I'm not in. Baby monitor, all this stuff, and the timing of me opening the door, the fact that it stopped literally when the latch of the door opens. It just reminded me of like, when you catch like your child or you catch your pet or whatever, and they know they're doing something that they're not supposed to do, and you like call their name and they stop immediately. It's almost like the ghost or the spirit in there stopped because it had got caught. Just the music stopped perfectly when I was entering the door.
Hey, that phone toy, was it like the old fashioned one on the cradle, where you kind of talk to it, or was it like a cell phone version, or what type of?
No, it's a very modern version. It's basically like a really, really simple smartphone where it can take like really rude, 4 megapixel pictures. It kind of replicates, just for kids to think they have like a real phone. So it has like some songs that are preloaded on it, but you can take pictures. I don't even know if it saves the pictures or not. But just a very, $2 type electronic.
Did you hear that song? Was that song kind of on the playlist for this thing, or was it something totally different?
I did try to find the song, and I wasn't able to even figure out how to
ask your son. He's 2. He'll tell you how to do it.
Yeah. Like, how did you find this? But then, it happened again. And I thought it was strange. This time it didn't shut off when I went in the room though. I touched some buttons to make it stop. But it was the same feeling of like, I feel like somebody's here. And, there's, to add to the story, there's so much context with these things, and it's just anecdotal, of course. So it's hard for other people to really be there when they're not to experience it. But my brother's wife, she had passed away 2 years ago unexpectedly, and it's funny enough, it was like 10 days. She had died, and within 10 days later is when we found out that Evie was pregnant. So it was just so close to when she died to when we found out she was pregnant. That played into my mind about maybe this is Lisa coming to visit, because Lisa would have absolutely, my sister-in-law would have absolutely loved the concept, of me just having a child, which was never, on any kind of prospect or anybody's bingo card in my life. So it's like, that was my natural thought too, is just like, this is Lisa. She's come to say hello and be with Jorah. Yeah.
Now, you got rid of the phone, right? How did you? You clever eBay reseller. You got rid of the phone.
I got rid of it because, not because I was like scared of it per se. It was more of, it was a toy that even when it wasn't doing something paranormal, it was an annoying toy to listen to. So just got rid of it.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Do you know that I had my youngest daughter Emily? I had a video out on YouTube called "The Ghost in Emily's Crib." Did you know that?
To remind me, I do recall it, but don't remember.
This was a while ago, when it was before like good cell phones, and it was a baby monitor for like a week. It had been going on where there was this weird type of sinewy, spidery figure traipsing across our daughter, and we thought, well, is it some weird stuff coming in through the lights? Is it a spider web? Is it whatever, and so we would change the camera position. We would do all this stuff. And, being the typical disconnected husband, I ignored it for the first like week. My ex-wife was telling me about it. And so I was home alone watching my daughter, and I saw it clear as a bell, kind of this sinewy, spidery figure kind of traipsing over my daughter while she's sleeping. And then as she got up, it left. And so I had posted that. I posted that on YouTube, and I was actually on Jim Harold had a show with a guy named Clayton Morris called The Paranormal Files or something. And that was actually in the movie, Kyle. It was in the movie that we made, Afraid of Nothing. That was in there too. So yeah. It was weird. And same thing. We got rid of the bed. We got a different bed. Because we tried all this stuff,
What do you think that could have been? You have any theories?
I don't know. I remember talking to Ruthie Larkin when we were first like doing some research for the documentary, and she thought it might have been maybe a sister that when Emily was born that maybe didn't make it through, like Emily was going to be, kind of twins or something. And so it was weird. I have to ask my ex-wife about that, but she thought it was like a protective, almost like a lost sibling. Now, maybe Angela had a miscarriage before, or maybe it was based on that pregnancy or something. But yeah, she thought it was something. It was kind of a sister that was not born or didn't make it to birth. So that was kind of the thought. Yeah. So I don't know. I have to go back and ask my ex-wife about that, what she thinks. But it was weird, and it was just kind of interesting. And it was really bad, kind of, because the monitor and I had this bad type of video recorder, and so it's not super great quality, It's kind of like what people complain about UFOs nowadays. Why do they have such bad picture, But it's but it was enough to show. And actually, I did get some play on the internet on it. And it was kind of interesting. And then it went away after we got rid of the bed, the crib.
Sure.
So the bed, so double roll bed, I think. So so we both have that baby monitor thing, man. It's
babies and spirits, like it's a peanut butter and jelly. They go together.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you had a ghostly experience and you're closer to believing in something. You haven't had a full apparition yet. I haven't either, but
no.
Let's talk about some other stuff. I mean, let's talk about the Miami Mall incident, which I think was around January of 2024 at the Bayside Marketplace. I'm looking down at my notes, where it was a massive police response. I mean, massive. You would see it was like almost all the police in Miami.
As far as the block stretched.
If you were going to commit a crime, that was the night to do it, because all the police were there, right? And first it was just like they're blaming it on like teens fighting or fireworks. And then after that, some stuff came out of the internet where it was something else. So let's, I know you've kind of dug into this a little bit. Share your thoughts on that and what kind of piqued your interest.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is an Afraid of Nothing paranormal podcast alert.
$10 merch. $10 merch.
That's right, podcast fans. If you go to our website, afraidofnothingpodcast.com, and click on the store tab, you too can find now $10 merch on the website. So not only can you get the great stuff like the hoodies and the t-shirts and the blankets and the glasses, you can also get stickers and bumper stickers and, well, a whole lot more. You need to see it yourself. But just remember this.
$10 merch
is now available at the Afraid of Nothing podcast store. Check it out. And remember, never be afraid to look good.
Yeah, I think I had seen this because I watch a lot of YouTube, not necessarily conspiracy vids, but weird things that happened in the world last week type of videos. So this one immediately stuck out. Strictly, if you haven't seen, for anybody listening who hasn't seen it, check out just Google or YouTube Miami Mall incident. There's limited footage of the actual event, which is also kind of
They took away the phone.
It's like one of the more popular videos is somebody who's living in an apartment complex looking down, I don't know, they're really high up, I don't know, 30th floor or whatever. And they're just surveying with their camera the incident at the mall with just like you said, it looks like, 100 cop cars or more. And whenever things come out, like official stories about things, and it's something as simple in this case as they were there to break up a fight, initially it just feels strange. Because, well, I could kind of believe that how big is this fight? Yeah. It better be an enormous fight because I know people can get rowdy. It's New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So maybe it could make sense. But even then, just the amount of police presence just makes you kind of wonder. And then when you have immediately there's people come out with their voices of theories of things that they're hearing and what's going on, and over the next couple weeks as information was slowly trickling out, because it's always hard in the first few days after, it's like there's no information to really make any kind of judgment call, but then you started to hear like things such as some eyewitness accounts that people had seen kind of like translucent beings or people that were kind of in and out of kind of like going invisible, come in or teleporting within spaces.
And tall, like 10 feet tall, like not like short translucent.
Yeah, shadow beings, like all these different variations. Plus the fact you combine that with allegedly there was a lot of like NDAs / confiscation of phones from people at the mall, which is up to my knowledge. Like there's still, if you try to find that stuff, maybe there's a few things that I haven't seen, but I don't think that footage exists. There's no footage from the mall that has been released to back up. If it is a fight, let's see it.
And was anybody arrested? Was anybody arrested and charged with anything?
Right.
Or I don't think.
Right. Yeah, there's so much to it that doesn't fit that original narrative that they're breaking up.
And you're right. There's like literally panning across. You're not exaggerating when you say 100 cop cars. It was like literally a full pan down a street and down all the way. And they're all parked kitty cat on top of each other. If it was because of a fight, what was the gang and who did they capture or whatever? Yeah. So it's just, how did it, as you looked at it, did it just quietly go away? Was there any resolution or?
I think it quietly went away, but I think that's on purpose. Because nobody was allowed. I had heard that some people initially within the first 24, 48 hours came out such, like TikTok videos and such that talked about their experience of things that they saw, but they were quickly removed from platforms or the ones that kind of made it through. I saw people were saying like, watch this before it's taken down type videos, and people were telling the experience. And some of them had said like the charges that they were going to get charged with by sharing the information, and then their accounts disappeared. And you can go on YouTube, and just type in like Miami Mall incident eyewitnesses, and there'll be some people that made videos of such eyewitnesses giving accounts that accounts no longer exist. There's just a lot of questions about all that I feel, just like most, so-called conspiracy theories, it's like if you want people to believe the story, then provide evidence that it was just a fight.
Yeah, with all those cop cars, I'm surprised nobody had like a CB radio or whatever to pick up what was going on over that. I mean, none of that stuff kind of came out that I was aware of. So, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I think one theory, if you can do the conspiracy thing, was it was a portal or a time slip, and it was just kind of a weird thing that happened that they came out, and then they went back. I don't know. It wasn't like they were terrorizing like a mall, and but it was like almost like they appeared. It's like and then they were kind of gone. So I don't know what else you heard, but that's one theory that I heard.
There's so many. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same one you're talking about, but I had heard that there's some sort of longitudinal, latitudinal, GPS pinpoint that these beings, I forget where they thought they were, like some sort of portal, like you said. There's some sort of location that they thought they were going to, and actually it correlates with like the other side of the earth or something like that. I'm not as
that's almost like it could almost be an alien comedy where they think they're going to the White House and they end up in a mall, or something like that. It's crazy.
Well, there's like, I heard an interesting one. I don't think it was like from a remote viewer a couple weeks ago, where they had mentioned that they believed that the beings that were in the mall were entities, like demonic entities that were trying to actually, the way that demons, I guess that this person was explaining it, was trying to find a new host body, basically. But because of the size, their physical size, that they're unable to fit in a lot of, they tied it back to the time of the giants. So they said that these were like old, ancient, demonic entities that were trying to find new host bodies, but they can't physically fit into human bodies. It was just a theory I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's just funny. Then these things just go away, and the next thing happens. So one of the next things that's been happening recently is cloning, like human cloning. So people may or may not remember Dolly the sheep that was cloned in 1996, right? It came out, a perfect clone. And then since that time, they've been cloning like pets or like livestock and stuff, and people spend, if they lose a pet that they love, they spend $50,000 to $150,000 to get a clone of their pet. And they don't get it on the first try. They have to do it and do it and do it, right? Which is probably why if you do it with humans, that's probably brings up kind of a moral thing, But I think one of the first ones I heard was Avril Lavigne in 2003, the pop singer. She was at a concert and she kind of had a emotional moment. Her grandfather died. And the rumor was that right after that, she had a body double, the body double took over for her because she may have committed suicide or something. But anyways, Avril Lavigne, how she appears in her composure in interviews before and after changes, even her handwriting changes a bit. And now the speculation, or at least the theory, was that she, it was her body double. Same thing with like the Beatles. Remember, like in the early 60s, probably before your time, but Paul McCartney, Paul is dead, and they got a body double for him. Even Eminem, there was a theory about him. And most recently, an actor, Jim Carrey. And so what are your thoughts about the human cloning and the Jim Carrey one in particular?
It's interesting. There has been so many, like you said, it's like celebrities, people in authority, politics. It seems to be kind of, there's like people that look out for, if it's not necessarily cloning, it's like these high tech masks.
Yeah.
With Jim Carrey's interesting because it's like one of the surrounding things, which I'm not sure folks who aren't into conspiratorial circles or just like paranormal circles may not know that Jim Carrey over the past, say, decade or so has become very much, I would say, spiritual, very like metaphysical. If you look at some interviews, he says things like, we don't exist, messages like that, where it kind of sounds like he's gone loony. Yep. Jim Carrey is always loony, but in a different way, loony, but listen to like his early interviews to the last decade, he became very like spiritually awakened, I would say. Not necessarily like religious, just
He was almost like an uncomfortable interview, if you're on the red carpet or whatever, because he would say stuff and you're like, none of this matters. I'm just playing a character, Jim Carrey right now. And if you see me change or grow a beard or whatever, it's not me. They took me, and so that raised kind of the speculation. So he was at some award show or something in France, and totally different looking. And even his demeanor was different looking. And it was like a lot of people that had questioned that. And they thought first there's a guy, I forget his name, but it's very famous for mask and impersonating, but it wasn't him. They confirmed that it wasn't him. But yeah, I mean, his whole look and demeanor was different. And,
which isn't necessarily uncommon because, you see, especially like Hollywood, where it's so important to so many folks that they try to remain, the younger look because, you can age out of Hollywood. And so at first I actually just thought that I was like, oh man, I never would have thought Jim Carrey would go through like all the Botox and all the cosmetic surgeries and stuff. He didn't seem the type. But I was like, maybe that's all it is. But then, the more the thing that stuck out with me the most of why it wasn't Jim Carrey was that night when he was signing autographs and everything. He was the whoever that was signing it with the right hand, and it's well known Jim Carrey's a left-hander.
Wow.
He's left-handed, and you can just go back in any videos. He does everything as a lefty, and suddenly that night he's a righty. So do I believe that was Jim Carrey? No, I actually don't. But for me to give an answer of what it was or why, I'm not sure.
Let me pose this question. Do you believe human cloning is being done, but we just don't know about it?
I think it's certainly plausible. I would say yes, but then I think that would require me to have some proof.
Yeah, well, that's just your best guess. Because look, Dolly the sheep was 1996. That's a long time ago, right? And they've been cloning pets. And I don't know. You could say maybe it's more complex with humans because when you put the DNA in and the protein and making sure it all messes up. But it raises a whole bunch of moral questions, right? Because I'm thinking, what if they were able to clone humans? On one aspect, if the population slows down, you could have more humans. You could have more humans, and you could clone some of your better people and have a better, you could have a robust society. Maybe that's good. On the flip side, they could, use them for slavery, for child abuse or things like that. It could be an easy way to, rather than get one person and then get 100, So there's a lot of good and bad uses for human cloning that you can think of. And then depending on what religion you have, it's kind of anti-moral and against your principles, depending on where you stand in religion. So,
there's if you look at something as simple as like Apple iPhones, it's, we got the whatever's coming out, say Apple 12 is, and then the time that the Apple 12 version 12 comes out, they already have the technology, for 13, 14, 15, 16 or whatever down the line. So if you just look at just logically speaking, knowing that that's true, I don't think it's a reach to expect, if you just extend that to more serious things, the capabilities of science and authorities and the powers that be, the amount of technology is that we're privy to and that we know about is going to be, it's going to be so primitive to actually what is really out there. I think it's a very extension of, logical extension, I should say, if we accept that we know like technology in, 2025 Subaru Outback, they have the technology for 26, 27, 28, but not going to release it all at the same time because then nobody's going to buy. They need new stuff to introduce every year to keep people buying stuff. So why wouldn't, governments and powers that be have far-reaching technological capability, but we're not going to know about it.
A question I have is, would a cloned human being have a soul?
Interesting, right? Well, did you see, I think it was just yesterday or 2 days ago, I don't know if it was a mosquito or a fruit fly. Did you see the experiment they did? And I could be wrong because I just read about it briefly, but they basically were able to download the mind of a fruit fly or a mosquito or whatever insect this was, and they uploaded it and then put it into a completely fabricated body of a mosquito or
Like
a
a
fruit
digital
fly.
body or a real synthetic body?
No, a real physical
Okay,
body.
yeah.
They basically they uploaded the software that they downloaded from an actual real live insect, and they put it into the replicated metal body or whatever they made the materials of a fake body, and they uploaded the software, and it immediately acted like a real fruit fly or a real insect or whatever it was. You check that out because it just came out yesterday or the day before. But it's like, it made me think about that question. Like, would humans, a cloned human, have a soul?
Would they be AI or would they have a consciousness? Would they have a soul? Those are the questions it raises, right? So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like, I mean, I guess, yeah. If you're looking at it from a spiritual sense, I can't imagine it necessarily would, if you believe that, God gives us our souls and our spirits. And, but then I guess, I mean, it's a good question because, if God created us, we're creators, we're created in his image. We're also creators. So if we create a clone of ourselves, are we giving it a soul? Are we giving it a spirit?
I mean, and how would you even test that? That would be something very interesting to find out.
Right,
So let's move on to our third internet conspiracy, which is Charlie Kirk. Let's talk about Charlie Kirk. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about who killed him. Was it the transgender? Was it the person who was kind of had the transgender girlfriend, boyfriend, or was was Israel involved? There's also, like I've heard on the internet, the wild speculations that Erica Kirk has been cloned, and the person that's there now is a different version, and the real one, Erica Kirk, was taken out. So who knows what you listen to? But what are your thoughts on that?
It's a tough one. I like most. I don't think I have any kind of answer. I don't know if we ever will have a direct answer to that. But what I do believe is the story that we're told that the person that the assassin that's currently in court. I don't believe that person is the assassin or
acted alone or
acted alone.
Do you think it was an MK Ultra thing, like a mind control thing, or do you think it was something? There's some weird stuff, like that guy who distracted right away. There's a guy who came up and said, "It was me. I did it." He distracted people, and then there were the people, the security behind him, that looked like they're almost doing like hand signals and stuff. So there's like all these variations you can take it.
And there's this, and there's there's so many things, so many different odd context and variables, and that's something that I thought was strange was as soon as it happened, there's somebody from Charlie's like tech team that goes and grabs the camera to take the memory card out. Like that was their first action. And I thought that was strange because it felt like it just feels like one of those things that who would have the wherewithal in a true tragedy if you didn't know it was going to happen? If this is really just a chaotic event, and literally within 2 seconds they're on top of the camera pulling, but specifically to get the memory card out. That feels off. It feels weird. It feels strange. Is it proof of anything? No. And then there's a video of the security team jumping over to kind of check on Charlie, and one like throws a chair, and you can see there's a camera angle of the chair literally falling through the table, which aligns with some of the theories that it was a hologram, that Charlie was actually a hologram.
Oh, wow.
The fact that they came in and they cleaned it the next day is strange. There's like a lot of things that just go against typical protocol of a crime scene, for example.
So what would be if it was a hologram? Maybe they killed him before that, and they had to like get rid of him. They weren't going to do a clone of him. They had to get rid of him. I mean, because like you said, they cleaned the crime scene, and that was the most graphic and visual murder. You get the JFK assassination, but this was like you could see it, and from different angles. And it was shocking. And of course, people didn't react shocked. Half the world was like, "Oh, good, he deserved it," and the other half are feeling bad about it. But just the reality of it, man. It was like murder in 8K. It was like weird. It's like you're
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. There's just so many different voices right now, and then you have it continuing. With Candace Owens, who is outspoken on, bringing whatever truth she thinks is the truth to light. And she raises a lot of questions. I don't follow as closely as I used to anymore, but raises some valid questions. But again, I don't know enough to even say, like some people say her questions are just more of a crazy conspiracy, wielding person.
But if that's the case, why did she have her life threatened? Why did she kind of have to,
right.
If she's just crazy, why does she have her life threatened? And I got to tell you, there's so much infighting on the right or the right commentators now with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and everybody's like fighting and doesn't get along. And they used to like 6 months ago or 8 months. It's so weird. So what is causing that? It's crazy. It's like the infighting that happens. And people become enemies so quickly, and Ben Shapiro, enemies with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, and it's just strange. They were very much united during the Biden presidency, and then once Trump became elected, everybody kind of went their separate ways. It's weird. So
I think it's. I mean, anything conspiratorial in nature. Especially when I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume most people believe the world is, the powers that be, government. I know I keep using that. That in general we're being protected. That people have our best interests as citizens of the world or country. That the world is altruistic in a way, and I think that unless people dig into real information beyond just typical mainstream media, which holds so much power, unless people really spend the time to dig in and ask questions and have full curiosity, when something as simple and large scale as like a Charlie Kirk event happens, and then accusations and conspiracies fly through, and this is people's only exposure to something like in a conspiracy circle, when they're not looking at other conspiracies that exist in the world. It's so easy to dismiss everything as crazy talk, and I think that's why just conspiracy has it's a stigmatized word, that all conspiracies are bad, that conspiracies are lies, that there's
on the plus side, they make us ask questions, just like scientists do, right? Even if they think something's reality, they are constantly asking questions. And so probably that's a good thing, but man, it's maddening, because the point of view, you would think if someone sees something, everyone would have the same point of view, but you don't. Everybody has different takes on it. And it's just so weird how, it depends on how you were raised or where you are in life or what your philosophical and political thoughts are, what you believe, so it,
I was just looking to see if I had this book that I'm reading now. It's called Sway. And it's the subtitles is something like the reasoning behind our illogical behavior. And I love it because it's actually a lot about the different biases we all hold, and no matter what information we're presented, how we tend to, based on our previous experiences and biases and communities that we grow up in, that it's just so it's really hard to get people to accept or even acknowledge that there might be other information, especially when it goes against what we already believe or know. But it's a fantastic book, Sway, and it goes through all these studies about how people, how we all just act really irrational, despite the information being plain as day to us that what we believe is not true.
Yeah, it's like you and the ghost story we started with, Kyle. You walked in, you had an example of a ghost story, but still you're not quite sure, right? So it is. And we've been kind of programmed to suppress our feelings, what our suspicions a lot too, because for fear of looking foolish or for fear of being racist or whatever. So it's it's an odd thing, man. I want to close on disclosure. All right. I told you before we got on, there was a documentary called The Age of Disclosure. It's really good. You should actually rent it if you can. It's by a guy named Dan Farrar, I think, was the director, and he was also directed he was a writer or is involved in some film called Player Number One, or what's it called? Get Ready Player Number One.
Is it called Player Number One?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, look at that way. But which I think Steven Spielberg was a producer or whatever, so they know each other. But yeah, so they know each other. So he comes out with this documentary where he's interviewing like all these government people, where they're really kind of almost laying down the sword that yes, I have seen something. I have seen, there's something that's not human here, and all this stuff. And then in the Super Bowl, they play this amazing ad with Emily Blunt, who I'm just going to say right now, I hope it stays in the film, you have a scene with in Disclosure Day, the Steven Spielberg film. So we hope that comes to pass and we can see you on the big screen. But that creepy thing where she's clicking, like she's doing a broadcast and she starts clicking. There is a guy named Daryl Anka. Have you ever heard of him? He talks to this being called Bashar. And he basically, he kind of clicks like that to start it, to get into the character or whatever. He has this clicking thing kind of like that, and this kind of jerky clicking thing. And, a little bit differently handled in the film that I could see from the clip. But, there's all these conspiracies about, the movie Disclosure Day. Is it something to prep us for disclosure, or is it telling us disclosure itself? Is that the announcement for disclosure? So, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, you're only there for probably a couple days or whatever, but very cool to be in something like that. And what are your thoughts about the film and the conspiracy around it that you can talk about, and about disclosure? Do you think it's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it feels intentional because of all the, specifically the last few years of all the information that is actually coming out, that people are saying that we're awakening as a world, and that there's got to be information presented. There's been so much, even if you go regular or typical news, that have been talking about aliens and the disclosure of aliens being real and present. So the timing of this movie coming out, which is I think June of this year, it feels like it might not be a coincidence.
I don't know if the date's tied to anything in particular. I think it's like June 12th or something like that.
Sure. June 12th, I think, is the release of the film. Whether real world, if I don't know if it'll be this year or next year, but I think the timing of this particular movie because that's been, we actually had on the podcast maybe a year and a half ago, there was a gentleman you had on that talked about symbolism within cinema.
Yeah.
Talked a lot about like Wizard of Oz specifically. But that's, that's just as he mentioned, that's just scratching the surface, because there's, I don't think it's people should forget like that movies are cross culture in their breadth of scope of messaging to the world, and storytelling. And I don't think it's a reach for people to kind of prepare public by doing something as, like this movie, this Disclosure Day.
And is that going to be a distraction? Is that, to be a distraction? Is that a hologram in itself? Is that something just a big kind of thing to make us go to bond together, right? Like some terrorist attack happens like 9/11. Is that something to make us all bond together and really on the flip side, lose a lot of our privacy and kind of make it easier to be monitored?
Sure.
There's also a rumor that President Trump has a speech like ready to rock and roll after. Yeah. So, who knows? Who knows what you believe? So, this is crazy. And we're near the end of it now. But is there any other conspiracy that you've heard of recently that's kind of raised your eyebrows a little bit?
There's a guy I watch on YouTube. His name's Barry Stepp, and there's another guy called Modtrica, and there's endless of them. Those are the two that I watch regularly. And Barry Stepp, he does a video daily, and some are conspiratorial in nature, where he just kind of highlights, 10 to 15 videos and then gives his opinion on them. Some are conspiracy in nature. Some are just more of like ghosts caught on video type of things. But there's so many to think of one. Outside of this mosquito bug one is interesting. I think I did want to just like say, kind of a good touch upon a couple minutes ago about just conspiracy theories in general. I think George Carlin has a great speech in one of his comedy routines about what a conspiracy is, which I wish I could remember the line. But if you when you're editing this, if you look it up, it'd be great. Maybe insert a clip or something.
Okay.
But it's really cool, his perspective of it, because it makes it seem, again, I think conspiracies in general are so stigmatized as something that only crazy people think.
Well, he questioned everything. Let's talk about questioning everything. He was the guy that questioned everything, and he turned it into comedy, which was brilliant. But he was the guy who questioned everything. I'll have to take a look for that, All right, so we're wrapping up, my friend. So what is coming up with you? Anything in particular? Do you want to promote your kind of YouTube page, or is there anything that you're working on? Is Popeye the Slayer Man 2?
Oh, yeah, we're doing a sequel to Popeye Slayer Man 2. We start filming in end of April. So, and we're trying to push this one out. So it'll be out by the end of the year. So it's gonna be a fast and furious. We're spending like 2.5 weeks on the shoot, which is a really long time. Yeah. But we're going to try to edit and get everything. We got to have it ready for AFM.
Is the script done? Are you guys done with the script, or
everything's done? We're actually casting right now.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, it's and it's a bigger scope than the first film.
You're bringing Sarah Nicklin back?
Yeah, Sarah's gonna. She has a much bigger part in this
that's
one,
awesome.
Thankfully.
Yeah,
Sarah's going to be in it. So we got Popeye coming up. So that's what's going on the forefront.
Are you going to have as crazy kind of those kills like you had on the first one? The kind of like the 1980s, the heads being smashed,
Well, yeah, we're trying to stick to the practical effects, because it's like that's old school stuff, and I think especially like with the advent of AI, like that's like one of the things with. For the next few years, when everybody has the capability to make basically like Marvel quality films, and it's going to be 12 months from now, where you're going to have, for the cost of a Mountain Dew and a bag of Doritos, some kid's going to be able to sit in his basement and make some Marvel quality. Who's to say it'll stand up to, still needs a good story, of course, for it to be interesting. But I think everything's going to be so effects driven and heavy, because now everybody's going to have access to it with just some.
Yeah, you're not limited for budget like Independence used to be. You could create this stuff. So that's going to be amazing. So I see good and bad in AI. I don't know. We'll close with what's your thought on AI as an actor? Do you hate it, or do you see, or is glass half full, or?
Industry wise, I think it will do a lot of harm initially. Actually, just before we hopped on today, I'm reading about how the actors union, the previous contract is up at the end of June this year. So they're already negotiating with the studios. But one of the things is obviously AI, because that's what the strike was basically over last time. But now we already hear murmurs that basically they're going to allow studios. We're hearing that studios are going to be allowed. They're making a deal with Actors Union to use AI talent for a fee, basically. I don't necessarily have feelings about it. I can understand why people are pretty upset, because it does feel like it's doomsday for the entertainment industry, especially not just actors, but crew. I don't know if you saw Doug Liman is he just announced he's doing his next film with only actors, and he's doing complete AI locations. Wow. Which is already strange. And he's going to use AI to enhance, I think he said, I forget the exact word he used, but like to alter or do like brief performance, whatever it was. But interesting. Anyway, I think initially it might be pretty harmful to the industry, but I think humans are going to desire real humans. I think there might be some swift backlash against AI as a whole across industries, not just not just entertainment
It's
industry.
the same way. Yeah, it's with
yeah.
My industry as well, where I work outside of the podcast. People want it as an enabler, like an office assistant or something that makes me more, can do work easier and quicker. But they don't want it to be a replacement, and that's kind of the line that people want to draw. So there's people want to use AI because they love using ChatGPT and all that stuff. But then they're mistrustful of it because it's going to replace their job or replace them,
Right.
and then what do they do?
Yeah. I personally try to avoid it. Honestly, I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use anything, and I know I'm consistently being told I'm going to be left behind. I don't know if that's true, but I personally try to.
You might be one of the
it.
survivors because you don't.
Well,
you might be because you didn't do it.
I'm just thinking about like my son, because he's going to grow up completely where AI is already part of his life, and which is going to be different than people who are growing up, who are teenagers who are growing up at least through the age of the internet. It's even going to be different than that. But it's like now everybody's turning to AI to a point where they're not necessarily even knowing how to do the thing they're asking AI about, or when it comes to just physical tasks. And that kind of worries me, because it gives all leverage to AI when we rely on.
We're going to forget how to do basic things. Yeah. Like bake a cake, or whatever, it's like,
What's going to fight? Like, say Terminator comes to pass. It's like, how do you beat AI when you've relied on AI to do everything? Now you don't even know. I mean, you wouldn't even know how to shoot a gun or make a gun or do something basic.
Yeah.
So you've given all your leverage away.
So interesting.
Yeah, Siri, can you help me fight the war against the AI?
Hey, so that shirt, is that about your website? You're a thrift boss? Talk about that.
Yeah, this is my my online reselling YouTube channel, Thrift Boss on YouTube. So I make videos, about I've been reselling for about 15 years now. So I have a channel on YouTube, Thrift Boss, and just showing the adventures, how to make money reselling.
God, you're all over the place. You're really protecting it so AI doesn't replace you. You're doing the acting, you're doing the reselling, you're doing all the
Well, I figure reselling is pretty safe from AI, at least what I do. And so I'm sure there's things I'm overlooking but for the most part, I feel pretty safe about.
How was that palette that you just bought? Was it a good buy? The one that you just...
Yeah, the palettes are great. They're always, most of the stuff's all brand new, because I'm buying lost and unclaimed cargo pallets.
Yep.
So it's all stuff that people are like buying on Amazon or online shopping, and then somehow gets lost in the system, and then they just auction off these pallets, and it's all brand new stuff that people are already buying. So it sells fast, and there's always a few. Is
that where your son's phone came from? Was it from did you find that? Oh, you did. Yep. You never know. You never know what you get in a pallet like that. So it's interesting. All right, my friend, we're at the end of it. Great conversation as always. And again, going to close with anything else you want to leave the audience with regarding, what you're doing, or about conspiracy theories. What message would you leave with people? Because you look at a lot of this stuff, and what would you tell someone? Are they real, or is it just a message, a reminder for us to keep an open mind?
I would hope. Yeah, I think having an open mind, I think, is critical, and not just an open mind because we all think we have open minds, but if you just, at what point do, say, coincidences no longer become coincidences? If you look at old conspiracies that actually turned out to be true, like MK Ultra, you mentioned earlier, that was long time known to be, nothing more than conspiracy theory. At one point, Watergate.
Yep.
And then I think even Edward Snowden, a lot of the stuff that he was basically banished for, that came to be true. So it's like, I don't think it's a stretch, and I hope people would consider the possibility that, if those things, if we've been lied to before, why wouldn't they lie to us again?
Yeah, I think the takeaway is, look, don't be paranoid about everything in life, or else you're going to miss the whole value and not enjoy life, But you do need to have eyes wide open and to question things, as healthily as you can, so that you are aware as much as you can be, because the truth. I think I told you this before, but I think the whole thing about life is when we die, we finally know the truth, whether we're conscious or not. The truth happens, and so hopefully we're cognizant and aware when it happens, so that we know what's going on. But this whole life, the more I live, the older I get, I question more and more what's true, man. I just don't know.
That's I mean, that's so true. That's like the it's like the saying of the more I know, the more I realize, the less I know. Is that kind of?
It's just this weird Murphy's law,
Right.
All right,
It's
my friend. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, and always good talking to you, Kyle. And when you move out toward here, we're going to actually get together a couple times coming up, which will be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, let's do it again, Bob. This was fun.
Yeah, I love it. Cool.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit afraidofnothingpodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's afraidofnothingpodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode. And the world will know how swell you are.